for 1 year.
1 year.
So 1 year.
1 year in Ireland in the last decade. How long were you in New York for?
About just under 3 years, like 2.5.
Okay. And then Australia?
And then Ireland. And then I was like, well, the States aren't going to let me back in. So, I mean, it's fine. I was there like last month. It's fine. But do you know what? To be totally honest, I lived in New York, and you know that phrase, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. That kept me stuck. So I was like, I have to make it. I have to make it. I should have bowed out after like a year. That city beat the living out of me. So, yeah, I went home to Ireland.
I love that. Hey, I live in New Braunfels, Texas, too. Austin was a little bit too much. I love Austin.
It's too much.
But it was the same thing. I was like, whoa, this is a hard place to compete in. So, yes, I get that.
I left Ireland. Like, I had a going away party. I was like, I'm going to be Carrie Bradshaw. I'm going to live my Sex in the City life. I'm going to work at a big advertising agency. Like, had it all mapped out. That my ego, I mean, I was quite young. I was in my early 20s. My ego was like, you cannot go back home, a failure, you know? So, yeah, that kept me stuck for a very long time. I eventually did go home to Ireland for a year. And in the process of that time, I had my cousin ask me to come out to Australia. And I was like, Australia, what a bandwagon. I'm like, no, it's not for me. It's not.
Who doesn't want to go down under?
I know. I'm like, what? Anyway, almost 8 years later, I have my citizenship. And yeah, this is home.
Oh man, that's so cool. I just love it. I think a lot of us out there can relate to the idea of like, you know what? There's no defeat in home. You know, and realizing that there's an opportunity to regroup. In fact, if you look at the documentaries, right, and the stories of the people who crushed it, right, and are awesome and amazing people, they all had tremendous opportunities to regroup, reposition, pivot, figure things out. If we want to make meaningful impact, life's going to probably have a pretty meaningful impact on us too. Right. Yeah. So we're going to talk about that. Now, in order to get to where you are, and so Cindy and I, by the way, I love your website. It's got super clarity in terms of like going from invisible to in demand. I was like, whoa, that alone, like that is such a powerful message. And you're helping lead women, but you're also inspiring men like me. I'm like, well, maybe she can help me on this too. Let's start with the 3 resources. What 3 resources do you recommend for other visionary leaders that have helped you on your journey?
So I'm going to come at this from a bit of an unconventional aspect.
My favorite.
One of the book that had the most profound impact on my life is called You Already Know. It's by Helen Jacobs. She is an Australian author. It is very woo-woo, but it was the straw that broke the camel's back. I read it, and I mean, it took me months to read it.
Our audience is woo-woo, by the way. We're excellent. Vision pros. It's vision, like we're going big, you know. So yes,
I love it. I love it. My kind of people. So I mean, it took me a long time to read it. I would get to a part, and it would. I don't think I'm ready for that, and I would close it and I'd leave it on the bedside for a couple of months until I felt inspired and had enough capacity to open it again. But that book got me to realize that I was in quite a toxic relationship, that I really wanted to own my own business, which I've talked about my whole life. But it was really what are you doing? You're just floating through life. You know what you want for your life. This is the kick up the rear end that you need. And yes, there was, like I said, like lots of woo-woo woven into it, but it was really just, there was something in it. It switched something in me, and I've never been able to switch it off since. I would show it to you, but I have lent it to a friend. It's doing the rounds of my friend group. Yeah. It's almost falling apart. Like, I love it. Oh. So yeah, that's my number one.
Okay, if I lose track today, by the way, on this show, you've got me mesmerized right now because I've been watching Rings of Power, right? The Lord of the Rings thing, and your accent and the Harfoots, and I'm like getting lost in that show just listening to you. Sorry, go ahead. You can continue. What's number 2?
I love it. What is number 2? Number 2 is another book, and it's not very well promoted. Well, I don't think it is. It's called Key Person of Influence by Daniel Priestley. and it's quite a small book. I do have it on that shelf there.
I like small books.
And it's very small. The print is nice and big. And essentially what he does is he talks about how to build, gain influence, and leverage it, which essentially, if we're in business, or we want to create any kind of impact, be a strong leader. That's essentially what we need to do, right? We need to, we first of all need to know what we're talking about, know our stuff. Then we need to tell the world that we know our stuff. And then we need to collaborate and put ourselves in situations where we can then talk about it and gain that know, like, and trust factor, and then build on it and grow our community and our influence. So
Cool.
that is it is a very straight to the point, no nonsense, no fluff. No, it is an excellent book.
I wrote it, or Daniel wrote it?
Daniel Priestley. Oh yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm very straight to the point of these things too. We need leaders like that. Like, one, you can't be scared of other leaders and do very well in the world, right? You've got to be able to collaborate. And then two, yes, get right to those points that are like, no, we got to go after this. We've got to talk and really sincerely. This book right here, Hiring on Purpose, like, this does just that in the first pages. This is Dan Martell calls this his Bible for hiring. And it says, you should not read this book if you think hiring is a chore instead of an opportunity. You should not read this book if you think the way you've gone about it is blah, blah, blah. You should not read this book. And it keeps going and it starts cussing after a while. And it's like, do not waste your time on our materials. I like books like that. What's the third one?
Yeah, I love it. The third one, this is very well used, but I think it's under promoted. Maybe not, is YouTube. And I know that sounds really simplistic, but it comes from the fact that nobody knows everything and nobody knows what they're doing. I have seen behind the curtains of some really, really big corporations, and they're all winging it. Everybody's winging it. So when you get to a roadblock, and it's something I've had to kind of retrain myself in, getting to a roadblock and go, oh, I don't know the answer, close the laptop for the day, go on YouTube, go on Google. Somebody out there has found either the answer to your solution or at least a next step that will then figure something else out. And yeah, I mean, we use YouTube for loads of different reasons. And there's information age. The answer is out there. You just need to find it.
It's like somebody saying math class. Right? Like that's all formulas based on years, decades of wisdom, like being compiled, centuries of wisdom. And so, yes, if we don't know how to use platforms like that for our own benefit, or if we're just using them for fun, then we get really lost. We do, my company, we train a lot of people in Central and South America. And part of most of them want to learn English. So it's required. So now they have a required 30 minutes when they come in. The first 30 minutes is to learn English. AKA, I pay them to learn English, and they love it because they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is great! How do they do it? YouTube." And I teach them how to ask great questions of those YouTube influencers, how to give gratitude praises to those teachers that are teaching, and they start creating relationships with the best teachers in the world. And those relationships then become our friendships and come on this podcast and on our Spanish podcast. So YouTube is a phenomenal goldmine of opportunities for connections. And it's the same thing with the authors that you mentioned, right? If I want to know really like more about those subjects, I'll reach out to the author and actually build a relationship and a friendship with them. So visionaries, you heard from Michelle. These are fantastic resources that all of us can utilize. When we come back, we're going to dive in more about making meaningful impact, what that means to both of us. We'd love to hear your thoughts on that too. And we'll see how we can maximize this life together over the next 30 minutes. All right. Welcome in to Vision Pros Live with Jackson Calame. I'm your show host. We will be doing interviews for visionary entrepreneurs and guest leaders who are building fantastic visions out there. Hey, what's up? And welcome in to another episode of Vision Pros Live. I'm your show host, Jackson Calame, founder and CEO of First Class Business. And I am like a little bit too bought in already to our guest. We've got Michelle McCarthy on stage today. And if you, I told her I wasn't going to share her website, but her website, michellemccarthy.com.au, Studio Danu. I think I'm saying that right. And I believe that's a reference to a goddess. And Her website's all about helping you go from invisible to in demand. Now, like, why am I so bought in? And also, why was I like, I don't know if I trust this person? The market of solopreneurship, the market of anybody can do it, just start trying. That is the number one most profitable market there is in the business sector, because so many people don't know what they're doing. And so it's easy to write a self-help book and get rich, and it doesn't even have to be a good book. So that makes me think, like, all right, as a visionary and the leader of the show, how do I make sure that the people who are coming on the stage are as authentic as possible and aren't just feeding us a bunch of stuff that sounds nice but doesn't actually get us anywhere? I have to be very careful with some people, and they get mad at me in the process of vetting. Michelle didn't. She stepped right into it. She was like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy that you're talking about this. And yes, we need to be careful on that. And she showed a number of other signs that had me just go like, wow, I want her to win so big, because of the way that she showed up before this. And I can see that she is on this tenacious path to help people in life. And so we're going to be talking about making a meaningful impact. We'll talk about it as solopreneurs, as people who are driving big companies, as leaders, maybe even in your own homes. These principles will be able to apply all over the place. Before I bring her on stage, James Bond wrote a book called Brain Glue. No, not the license to kill guy. I call this James Bond the license to feel guy. And his TED Talk talks about becoming unforgettable. And how do we do that? Well, we learn to tell emotional stories, as Les Brown put it. Stories. Well, oh man, I'm not Les Brown, as you can tell. Facts tell, stories sell. Right. So go listen to the sample on this Brain Glue book, and you'll realize why Jack Canfield, the guy who sold 130 million copies of his book, said we would have to be an idiot as an entrepreneur not to buy Brain Glue. I highly recommend checking it out. It might give you some of the secret sauces that can help you go viral and help you understand how to get your message to stick with people the way that Michelle's message stuck in my brain. Then there's Ticker. Ticker is a platform launched by Sean Tepper, who we recently had on the show. And it is a stock trading platform, or rather an investing platform. He actually doesn't speak against traders, but he talks about how there's a stat in the world most people don't know, and that's that traders, how many traders out there are billionaires? There's 0 day traders who are billionaires. I was like, that's a mic drop if I ever heard one. Don't get lost in the investing world. Work with smart tools built by smart people. Sean Tepper is not just smart. I also saw the amazing type of leader that he is. And I was like, you know what? Let's just start telling people about this platform so you guys can go learn about investing if that's your thing. And then there's the Water Project, last but not least, and something we are not affiliated with. The Water Project, when it came across my radar, I chose not to forget about it. It would have been easy to say, well, I've never been thirsty in my life. So why would I think much about this? Well, I dove in and I took a look, and I realized that there's millions of people in this world who don't even have access to clean drinking water. And I even had a team member one day who said, Jackson, that's so sad. Why do you talk about that? You're going to drive away our audience. And I was like, well, if that's going to drive away our audience, we've got the wrong audience. I want people who do care about these things. So if you invest in one of these projects, you actually get to pick the project, and you get to see what the Water Project does to bring it to fruition. You get to see the outcomes. So you know that your money was actually put to good use. And if you're not in a position to financially invest in this, my hope is that you'll just stop and take a moment to dive into woo a little bit and think, who would want to help and support this? Maybe talk about it over dinner with your family. Maybe share it with that friend who comes to mind. I see these kids celebrate water like my kids celebrate Christmas Day. And I'm like, yeah, I definitely need to pay more attention to the Water Project. If you know of another concern out there, a relief fund, maybe for the hurricanes that have just happened, and you want to drop that in the comments, please do. We never know the ripple effect of the good that we do. And we got 8 billion people to help in this world. So there's no shortage to dive in and help. Speaking of meaningful impact with Michelle McCarthy. Michelle, welcome to Vision Pros Live.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's dive in and make meaningful impact right now for the people that you typically serve. So who is your audience, and how do you usually help them?
So my audience is predominantly women who have ticked off all societal boxes. So they've got the good paying job, they have the house, the car, whatever it is, and they feel really unfulfilled. They know that they were meant for more, and they feel stuck, and they're almost embarrassed to say that they want more because it feels greedy, and it feels, they should just be grateful for what they have, but really they have this yearning inside them that they want to write a book, they want to step on stage, they want to start their own business, they want to grow their business exponentially, whatever it is. And they don't want to do it inauthentically, and they want to do it with integrity. So my job is to help them figure out the parts of them that they can weave into their branding, their messaging, and who they want to become, and help them amplify it and become that, and then in turn get them the opportunities that they want based on the person they really are, not on the person that they think society wants them to be.
Wow. That's amazing. And that bridges the gap for a lot of the next question, but I think we can dive in even deeper with it. So, because some people I ask that question to, and it just comes across a little bit, I don't know, superficial or weak. That was not superficial and weak. That was very deep and clear about, all right, who it is that you help. What does the vision look like? Once they've published that book, or they've found their authentic self, or they've come to accept that what matters to them is more important than what matters to the rest of the world. What does the vision look like from there for those people?
I think the sky is the limit for them. But when they come to me, they don't really know. The pinnacle is getting a TED Talk, is getting that book. They can't see beyond it because that is so far out of what they think is the realm of possibility. They're like, I crave it, I want it, I know I can do it, but I also don't think I can do it. So they can't see beyond that. But once they reach that step, the next step naturally unfolds. So, and for each of my clients, that's very, very different.
See, that's a big deal. I'm a big fan of Stephen Covey, right? Who says, begin with the end in mind. And I've got like an eternal end. So that's already secure. But in terms of like the daily life and how to live this life, what has helped me more is beginning with the vision in mind, which is exactly what you're talking about. And how you do that. Cause I can see the horizon, right? And I can see the trees that are there. But until I go over there, I don't know where to go next. I've got to be able to get to that hilltop so that I can then determine, do I want to go towards the oasis, or do I want to go to the forest, or do I want to go to the desert? Probably not in my case. It's not my thing. So that sounds like what you're helping people do. Is that correct?
It is. And what I have found personally as well is sometimes if you have a really, really big goal, whether that it will just say have your own TV network show.
Yeah.
But the goal that you can see is you want to write a book. Okay. Sometimes if you get so focused on the even bigger goal, you go, the book is just, it's so small. I might as well not even do it because it's, it's so insignificant. Or maybe it wouldn't be a book. Maybe it might be just starting a podcast. You're like, that's not even, without kind of, you can talk yourself out of it because it's so small in terms of your big goal, not realizing it's a stepping stone. So there is absolute power in knowing knowing where you're going, but also if you get too focused on the end goal, you can kind of almost dismantle and not work towards the really small baby steps that are required. So yeah,
this is like so beyond woo for me. Like I've never used that word 3 times in a podcast show, by the way. But like it's driving me a little bit nuts because my post in my workout group yesterday was literally what you just talked about. Literally, I literally said like I used to tell myself like if I can only get the one set in, right, the one rep in, it wasn't worth it. Because it wasn't going to lead to me having that awesome 6-pack and turning into Lewis Howes or Thor, pretty much the same person, right? So I told myself that I'm not going to do it because that's just a waste of time. In reality, I was avoiding the disciplines, and I was marginalizing the necessary steps that cultivate the field to create the harvest that then brings all of those results. It is really interesting that you help people capture the value of those little steps, because we have a program called Passion Pro, and it's free. And I talked about it a little bit. Well, we want to be able to guide people that come through that to people like you, who are able to then help them take things to that next level, or consider, where do I go from here now that I've figured out my passion? How do I implement this type of stuff? And you're leading with the same type of principles that we do. It's very refreshing to find. So Michelle, what's your vision for you? Since you might have your big TV goal, and then you might have your book goals. What do you see for yourself?
I mean, I really want to say global domination, but that's I mean, I'll take it. But
yeah,
my own personal goals and my own personal vision is, as I mentioned at the start, I'm Irish. I'm living in Australia. I have a daughter here, and this is our home. But I miss my family an awful lot. And Australia and Ireland are so far apart. It is a pain in the ass to get to. And what was happening was I'd get invited to like 3 weddings a year, a birthday and a christening. And I essentially had to be like, well, I like you the most, so I'm going to go to your event, but I can't go because I can't go home every year, or I can't go home multiple times a year. So my own personal vision is to have my cake and eat it too, and be able to create a lifestyle, be that financial and location freedom, that I can go home whenever I want, multiple times a year. My daughter can grow up with her aunts and her cousins, but I don't have to sacrifice the life and the lifestyle that we've created here. So that's my own personal vision.
I love it. You're going to love my quote. My favorite quote of mine, not my favorite quote, my favorite quote of mine: you can have your cake, you can eat it too, and you can have a conveyor belt of cakes. Right? Richard Branson, right? Inspired that 100%. LeBron James inspired that. You can have it, right? So I hate the quote. The original quote is, you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's like, who thought of that? Like, what pessimist decided that was ever appropriate to tell people? So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's probably just some mom at a birthday party being like, you have to share. It's like, I know it's your birthday, but like, these guests came for cake. So I mean, that's, as a mom, that's probably.
I know. I was like, as a dad, I'm like, no, I'm ignorant to this potential reality, and you just helped me. You humbled me. I like that. So Michelle, what's the on the humbler, darker side, what's the worst leadership experience that you've ever had?
This is, it was quite toxic. I had a leader who was quite volatile, in that they were run by their own emotions and insecurities. So if they missed a deadline, they would turn to the team and find fault in something that they had done, berate them, essentially to make sure that he still felt like the boss and the leader, and would put everyone else around him down. If he didn't pull his weight, the same thing would happen. It was quite, you're always on edge. And as I said, it was quite toxic. But the other side of that is, when something went wrong, which inevitably does in everybody's life and every business, you couldn't turn to him because you were terrified of getting in trouble. It was almost like you were a child, and being berated. And it would just amplify the problem, because there was no safe space. And it was just a reminder of the type of people that I don't want in my life, and 2, the type of leader that I absolutely, definitely do not want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I would say is classic inferiority complex. For those of you looking for like, what are they talking about? And an inferiority complex is definitely a great thing to look up on YouTube and look for the signs of somebody who has an inferiority complex, to protect yourself. Because the big lesson in that I already say, Michelle, was knowing that I don't want relationships with people like that in my future. And you got a healthy boundary on that now. And a lot of visionaries, we end up with relationships like that around us too, as visionaries, because if you have, most people around you can't fathom dreaming big anymore. And so it's then important to know, like, okay, well, who are my dream big friends that I talk about the dreams with, and who are my daily friends, or family members that don't necessarily understand that? How do I fit into both worlds? Different topic for another day. YouTube University, it's the best place to go for that. So best leadership. What's the best leadership experience you've ever had?
This was when I was quite young. I was maybe 15 or 16 and I worked in a hotel. And I've had many jobs, all through over the years, but this really stuck with me. And essentially, he was the opposite of the leader I just explained. He had a uncanny ability to just make you feel wanted, accepted, and like you were part of the team. And he was great in being really personable and jokes and, ask you about your life. And we had great fun. We knew where the line was. So he never blended it into, being too friendly in that then he couldn't be your manager or be your leader. And then like that complete opposite, when something went wrong, you were able to go to him and he would just step up. He would encourage you to step up, and it just helped everything. Like the cogs were well oiled. It was, I mean, if you did something wrong, there was a time and a place to pull you aside, but you just felt like you were being led, but also you were part of the team. And like I said, he was a restaurant manager in a hotel that I used to work in, and he had such a profound impact on me and my life. But also, I brought some of that forward when I went into my own managerial roles, completely different industries, but just that kind of treating people like humans. Sounds so simplistic, but like it's
No, but it's hard
so,
work. Hard work.
and
I had to go through. I mean, I went through
mhm,
the inferiority complex phase myself. Like a very big one. I was a horrible leader in the early
yeah,
days. I didn't know how to lead. I was
mhm,
just doing the best I could with what I had. But we can't justify that and expect our outcomes to change. We have to be
yeah,
willing to learn the aspects of, well, okay, what does it really mean to show up as a great leader? And you're talking about leading by example. You're talking
mhm,
about making room for mistakes. You're talking about training with people, not necessarily training the person, but with them. Like there's a lot of little things that we overlook when
yeah.
we have expectations that are unfair on others all the time, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I like I said, he had such a profound impact on me, and yeah, brought it with me. And I think about him very often. So
Shout
yeah.
out to Mystery Man there.
Yeah.
So we'll leave that where it's at for now. If you want to tag him later, of course, you're welcome to. Um, let's dive into one of my favorite questions. So, if this was the last chance you had, Michelle, to share something with the Earth, what powerful lesson can other visionaries learn from your experience?
Um Nobody knows what they're doing. Like nobody knows what we're doing. We're all on a floating rock. It makes no sense. Stop holding yourself back. Easier said than done, but I think just go for it. I think your goals and your visions are yours for a reason. And I think life starts on the other side of you getting out of your own way.
That was really cool. That's like if I got a fortune cookie, I would have like three papers on that one. And there's so much goodness in what you said. It was like it's like a daily affirmation paragraph, but like you did it all at once. It's
Oh,
easier said than done. I got the whole thing too, which is weird.
oh wow.
I don't normally do
I
that.
don't even know what I said.
Okay, we're gonna go back
Oh.
over it because it was so chock full of goodness. So I'm gonna pull it up. Let me kill this banner real quick, and then pull that one up because whoa, nobody knows what they're doing. We're all on a floating rock. I love that, by the way. Stop holding yourself back. It's easier said than done. Just go for it. And there's
Yeah.
there's so much value in pulling all of this is like a formula like of life,
Mhm.
like right
Yeah.
there, adding all of those pieces in. And I know somebody wants to say, just keep it simple. Why didn't you just keep it like I love when people oversimplify the simple just to make you feel inferior. It's like
Mm.
golly. And that was
Yeah.
beautiful. Um, I got in a car wreck once, and
Yeah.
I don't remember how old. I was probably 16. My brother was with me, and I was panicked. I was freaking out because it was my dad's giant truck. And it was a brand new truck that I wrecked. And so I'm panicking. He's like, Jackson, he's like, there are literally millions of pieces of metal flying at each other in this city all day long. Like they're going to collide. Chill. It
Yeah.
happens. And the floating rock analogy, you know, like, oh.
I love the way that was his reaction, because when I worked a car when I was 17, that was not the reaction I got. Definitely not. But yes. I think this call also just stems a lot from the people that I work with. They, like I said, they know that they want more, but they're holding themselves back, and they're telling it themselves it's because they don't know enough, or they don't have enough confidence, or insert any excuse. And yeah, I think, like I said, nobody knows what they're doing. Yeah. We're all figuring it out. We're all winging it. So you might as well just wing it with us and just, yeah.
Our intuition is not one to throw us off of cliffs. Like I think we imagine that, and that's not the case. And so I agree with you. Like normally we're holding ourselves back from pretty small realities. Again, there's a nuance, but if you're listening to our podcast and have the time to listen to this, you're probably not that person, who needs to be held back from certain things. So, again, a very, very powerful quote to just, I hope one person out there just uses that to kind of free themselves to try something new. And speaking of that, let's talk about meaningful impact to wrap up. So meaningful impact, I have my definition of what that is. I'm sure you have yours as well. I bet we both agree on the beauty pageant version of this, which again, I agree with it, is even smiling at somebody, saying hello to somebody makes a meaningful impact, right? So I'm going to steal that for us. But let's dive deeper into this. What is meaningful impact to you, Michelle?
I think it's living with integrity. I think it shifts from day to day. Some days the most meaningful impact you can do is maybe do nothing. Maybe you need to rest and recharge. Maybe it's, just being a little bit more present with your kids. And it's a whole spectrum. But also it's a whole spectrum for each person. I think when I delved into like the self-help side of things, I kind of got into this really weird kind of like, I always need to be my best and love and light and, all these things. And that's not reality. And some days like your 100% is not 100%. And so long as you're doing things with integrity, you are moving forward and yeah, to the betterment of, just want to say mankind, humankind, just the betterment of those around you. And like that could just be you and your kid. It doesn't have to be, we think sometimes it needs to be to create impact. It has to be like this big altruistic thing. And it doesn't, because things have a knock-on effect. Since becoming a mother, I've realized that if I do well in raising my kid, she will go on to do great things. And so it continues to flow.
Yep.
So that's a very long-winded answer, but I think just
it's a long-winded subject.
True.
So there's a lot of wind to this. So it's a masterful painting too. That's very hard to quantify. And I love that your answers gravitate towards kind of you do you. Right. Like we got to figure out what it is for us. I'm glad that you said sometimes it's doing nothing. I think so many of us as entrepreneurs need to hear that.
Yeah.
Right. We need to realize and sometimes we unfortunately need the permission, from somebody else to be able to recognize that. And that's why it's helpful to have a mastermind or a mentor or a coach or a business partner, people who are willing to look out for that. For me too, I came to really appreciate my own impact further. It's still work in progress, but I try to stay focused on just being my best self. Right. And that's my impact. It's like, okay, if I show up and I do my best today, including forgiveness, right, for whatever I don't do, right? Okay, I got to be able, if I'm going to forgive myself, am I going to wait till tomorrow and say, you know what, I'll do better tomorrow? Or can I just do it right now and say, no, I'm good. All right, now I can use that next minute productively.
I love this. I love that you said that, like, your best self, like, to yourself, because I think, I mean, in the era that I grew up with, being your best self was sitting down, being polite, please and thank you, and, you know, being your best self for other people,
For
and
others.
sometimes,
Yeah, that's not your
you know,
best self.
you
That's
know,
what everybody
you
else
know,
wants us to be. And I love that. Yes.
yeah, you know,
Do that.
and I'm not saying go out and be rude, obviously, but, you know, you're sit down, be a quiet girl, sit in the corner, you know,
Yeah.
don't ruffle any feathers, and over time, that kind of helps, has you switch off answering yourself, and women in
I switched
particular
everything off. I
are
switched
so
it all
bad
off.
for this. You know, we're last on the to-do list, and we never get around to it. So being your best self to yourself is like,
That's my
I love
MO
this, love
now.
it.
Well,
I
thank
love
you.
it.
And I mean, it's been so liberating to step into. I grew up completely suppressing who I was,
Mm-hmm.
right, and for a long time. And then I made it to where I wasn't around toxic people, and I was rediscovering right now who I am now with new types of relationships. And again, a lot of us go through this. I mean, I hope you get the chance. Those of you who haven't crossed that threshold of being able to be you, like, come and join us. Come and find friends or that will appreciate you for who you are. And going through that phase, I literally like turned off all relationships with people who wouldn't let me be me. It was like a trigger there. And nowadays, it's interesting because I'm twice divorced. So there's a couple of people who have opinions about my who I am as a father,
Mm-hmm.
who I am as a husband, and I'm back into a scenario where there's so many people in my past and present that want to have their own opinion,
Yeah.
who I am, what I do, how I do things, and so, but now I've got this new tool set,
Mm-hmm.
and the new tool set is, oh no, like I don't care what you think, like, I love you, and I
Yeah.
will always choose to love you because that's my choice. I'm empowered with that, and your opinion does not matter.
Yeah.
I'm doing my best and what I do. And so I have now positioned, and now I've got a bunch of relationships and friends and business partners and people around me who support that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Jackson that they want in their life. And if
Yeah.
that's the one they want in their life, that's what they're going to get. And like, I'm excited to have them around. But if anybody's coming at us or telling us that we're in the wrong place or the wrong time, they're trying to make an impact or an impression on us. And if you, I like that word a lot because I don't like to make an impression on others. An impression means you literally put a dent, like
That's true.
you made something happen to somebody else. Like, I'm not designed to make an
Yeah.
impression on somebody else.
Can
On me. Go
can
ahead.
I ask?
Yeah, please.
So, because this is a lot of where my clients get stuck. You said that you remove people that didn't allow you to be yourself. But how did you know, or how did you come about uncovering who that was, who the real you was? Because under all that suppression,
Mhm.
it's kind of hard. You don't know because
Step by step.
yeah.
We know what one of my favorite, Gage Ritter. I love you, Gage. I haven't seen you in a long time. He moved to somewhere in Asia, back in the day. So he's helped. I was going through divorce, right? My first divorce, and he was steam mopping my floors with me, trying to help me clean out my house because I was moving to a new apartment. And I remember this so well because he put soap in the steam mop, and you're only supposed to put water in it. And so he's literally making my floors sticky like crazy. I'm gonna have to clean this whole thing after, but he's profoundly like opening my eyes to being authentic and stuff. And so I'm just listening and taking it in, knowing I'm gonna have to fix all this later. And Gage says, Jackson, you can't watch a tree grow, man. He's like, if she can't see your growth, like, that's not your fault. You're doing everything you can. He's like, but you can't watch the tree grow. And that really helped me like step into, oh, it's her loss in this case. Having a friend like that to appreciate the fact that it's just going to take time to move, and then little things. Watching JP Sears, the long redhead guy with the really funny shows on YouTube, where he makes fun of everybody, but like does so nicely. His TED Talk is all about being able to step into your authentic self. And there I was watching that as like a 33-year-old, going, I
Yeah.
can do this. I can start to be a little bit more like JP Sears, lean on him while, wait a second, he's teaching me to be more like me. Right.
Yeah.
And just starting to share stories that were vulnerable of the past, like liking Barney and being made fun of for it. And like, it's not as scary these days. Growing my hair out, that was terrifying. I was horrified at the idea of having long hair, Michelle.
Wow.
That inspired me to do it. And it got comments. I remember my uncle's like, ugly. And my little child self, was
Yeah.
like ready to go cut my hair and like crawl into a hole and die. And I was like, okay, I'm good. I can take it. All right. Let him do his thing. So it just, it took baby steps.
Yeah.
And I just decided, you know what? If I can do one push-up today, maybe I can do two tomorrow. If I can do two tomorrow, maybe I can do three the next day. It goes back to your principle of I can't undervalue the minute changes that can add up and stack to being grateful for who I am. And I wish everybody felt that way about themselves.
I love that, because I think, a lot of what my when I'm dealing with my clients is, they're coming at it from a marketing and a branding perspective, and I always get them to take a step back. And I love the way that you're talking about like building on bits. I'm always talking about the opposite. It's dismantling. And when particularly dealing with personal brands, I deal with both, but particularly dealing with personal brands is, you show up online today and you show a little bit, and then that builds your confidence. You realize you didn't die, and they're not coming at you with pitchforks. Like you're fine. And then you slowly start to it's like it's like a parallel. You're slowly like dismantling things, but then you're also showing up, and it's kind of at each phase they both kind of work together.
No, I do, because I feel like I'm misleading people if we don't dive into all of that. No, there was a phase where I was trying to go live on Facebook and all that. And I remember a friend came on and said, when are you going to give up on all this washed up Tony Robbins bull crap, like rebate, discount Tony Robbins stuff? Like, he crushed me with that. And I was, I blocked the dude. I was like, oh, that's not a real friend. And I shut down. I stopped doing it.
Yeah.
It wasn't the right same day, but it was really hard for me to accept that, like, man, is there some truth in what he's saying? And so there's another TED Talk on how to not get offended. I don't remember his name, but it's red hair. Phenomenal.
I need to look that one up, because
it's so
I'm such like, because I think it comes when you're a bit of an empath, the opposite side of that is you can be so easily offended. You're open, and for better or for worse.
Coin flip analogy, and how on one side the reality is maybe there's partial truth to what they said.
Well, that's why it hurts. If it didn't,
and on the other side is, it's actually there's no truth to what they said, but it's a reflection of them.
Yeah.
And they're casting it on you. But his TED Talk's amazing.
I love, actually, I know at the start you asked me about resources. Brooke Castillo, the Life Coach School, she's phenomenal. Love her. Brooke Castillo, her name
Brooke Castillo. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And she has this analogy. She's many analogies that I have adopted over the years. And she has this analogy of, if somebody told you that they didn't like your blue hair, would you be insulted? And you'd be like, no, you're crazy. My hair isn't blue. Like, what are you? Are you blind? Like, there's something wrong with that guy. And it would just be like, you just walk away being like, God, that guy was really weird.
It's in the TED Talk.
Is it okay? So it's come from him then, right? Excellent. Well, I suppose they're all. Yeah, I think it's brilliant, and it's just one of those things that I kind of try to remind myself that it's like, like you said, it's either a reflection of them, but then also, like, if it wasn't true, or if I didn't believe it was true, it wouldn't kind of stick in my brain.
Good. We're gonna link to that TED Talk in the show notes as well. So, Michelle, this was a blast. You taught me a lot in this process. Those of you who can learn through the experiences of others, like, I think you had a heyday today. If not, well, best wishes to you. But we've got in the show notes, we'll have action steps of how you can get in touch with Michelle. We'll also have, again, all the resources down there too. And we'll try to put together a little guide too of how we use YouTube for our purposes, for the advancement of our team members and our own personal well-being, because there's so many ways we use it, and sometimes we take for granted how we know how to use a resource, right? And so I want you visionaries to have that type of resource in hand, because maybe you don't need that guidance, but maybe your team members do. Right. And so we always want to look at how can we spread the love and spread the wealth and spread what we're doing. So without further ado, we'll wrap the show up. And I do have one other call to action. That's if you have a vision that you'd like to share with us, then in the top right corner, there's a big old button that says be our guest. Apply, come be on the show, come tell us about what you're up to and how you're doing things. And we will see you guys on the next episode of Vision Pros Live. Take care, everybody. Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out your vision.